Hi, my name is Dr. Kane Clark, and I'm going to be talking today about motor competence and MVPA, spurious associations from inappropriate analysis. Okay, diving straight in, we're all aware that there is a reciprocal relationship between motor competence and physical activity. Indeed, there is an abundance of literature out there that professes to show us that motor competence is MVPA. However, statistical incongruity around treating MVPA as an isolated behavior may lead us to question the inferences being made. Indeed, this may be an example of a typical day with our behaviors segmented into sleep, sedentary time, light physical activity, and MVPA. So my question is this: why do we spend so long contemplating and worrying about the 5%, albeit arbitrary in this case, which is arguably the hardest behavior to actually change? So in traditional analysis, maybe we're looking at the association between MVPA and motor competence, and we might see that MVPA significantly predicts motor competence. Great. However, MVPA is a time-use behavior. It's nested among a full complement of behaviors which are unequivocally bound to 1,440 minutes per day. You cannot simply add MVPA without a consequential change in the remaining time use. So we are potentially sacrificing statistical accuracy for ease when we treat MVPA as an isolated behavior. So in cahoots with Professor Duncan and Dr. Martins, we decided to look at the association between the physical behavior composition and motor competence. We took two approaches using traditional analysis and compositional analysis, which I would liken to a two-dimensional versus a three-dimensional view. Indeed, briefly, the methods across a suite of studies, we measured physical activity and we measured motor competence. Indeed, then all of the incumbent data was analysed using R. Now, briefly, the difference between the traditional and compositional analysis is that traditional analysis is Euclidean by nature, in that it is just a variety of measuring A to B, whereas compositional analysis is Aitchison geometry, which essentially allows us to consider the combination of multiple parts. However, to be able to interpret between the two geometries, we need to use certain methods to make that achievable, and one such way is by using isometric log ratio transformations. Okay, so some brief results I'm going to show you from across the studies we conducted. In one of the samples we looked at, we found some individual behaviours were predictive of motor competence, whilst in another individual sample, we found that no individual behaviour was significantly associated with any part of motor competence. So what do we do with this? Well, that's where we used the compositional analysis, and actually what we found was universally that the composition was able to significantly predict motor competence. I hear you asking me, well, how do we know which part of the composition is important then? And that's where the isotemporal substitution comes in. What we can see from this is we can kind of artificially add, remove 10 minutes or any other fixed duration of time between pairs of behaviours and look at the theoretical change in outcome variable, in this case, motor competence. And what we see in this sample is motor competence may be improved with some increases in MVPA. Yeah, that makes sense. But actually, if we dig deeper into this, we can see that there's actually no changes in locomotor, no conclusive changes. Whereas when we dig into object control, we actually see that, so MVPA may confer some positive changes, but equally sedentary behaviour appears to be conferring some positive changes in object control. I guess that forces us to think deeper about what this sedentary behaviour is. When we consider object control, fine motor control, a lot of these skills and tasks and activities can be done whilst being sedentary. So it forces us to consider the plethora of behaviours and not just one on their own. We can visualise this by way of a ternary diagram where the activity behaviours, the compositions, are plotted and in this case colour-coded against motor competence score, where yellow is high and blue is low. And you can already see from the kind of the yellow splotches on the diagram that there's no one fixed composition or area where the most motor competent children are, which suggests to us that we shouldn't really consider just one behaviour on its own as being important or not. Okay, so what does this mean for practical implications? Okay, so we really need to consider the composition of physical behavior with regard to motor competence. Okay, unfortunately, traditional analysis alone of physical behavior data is statistically inappropriate and is likely going to lead to spurious associations, inappropriate inferences, and potentially missed opportunities. So, am I saying that this means we need to abandon MVPA? Absolutely not. We need constructs like MVPA to be able to deliver palatable and translatable public health messages. However, what it does mean is that we need to adequately consider the full composition. Okay, and with that, I'd like to welcome any questions. Thank you.